Welcome to Sustainability Now, solutions to shape a world that works. Designed for everyone interested in responsible stewardship of the planet, covering food, energy, housing, water, waste, health, economics, and consciousness. Welcome to your community, Sustainability Now, with your host, Mira Rubin.
Welcome, everybody, to Sustainability Now, technologies and paradigms to shape a world that works. I'm your host, Mira Rubin, and today I am honored to welcome Athena Steen, a visionary natural builder, educator, and artist whose life work beautifully intertwines sustainability, culture, and community. As co-founder of the Canelo project in Canelo, Arizona, Athena has spent over 3 decades pioneering the art of earthen construction, transforming humble materials like straw, clay, and plant fibers into homes that are not only sustainable, but also sculptural and soulful. Raised in Santa Fe as a member of the Santa Clara Pueblo, Athena's rich lineage informs her approach to building, where form meets function and tradition meets innovation. Through the Canelo Project, Athena and her family have created a living laboratory of sustainable practices, offering workshops and community projects that teach people how to build with natural materials, cultivate native plants, and live in harmony with the land. Her work has not only transformed landscapes across the Southwest, but has also inspired a global movement towards natural building and ecological living. Athena, I'm so delighted to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, this is great. I am so personally interested in alternative methods of building, but we could also say traditional methods of building, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Not that long back ago. It was, we were a couple generations, where we put a slight twist on the traditional, and you've got a lot of the new technologies. Yeah.
So how did you come about getting involved with straw bale building?
Well, I grew up building family. We need a room, we need a house, someone in a house. And so especially in the Pueblo generation and family growing up near Santa Fe, we just build with what you had and come together, because it's a lot easier to do it as a group.
It's really funny. I was just feeling into that. The aesthetic is so different. We need something. We need a room. We need a house. Let's just build it. That is not part of our collective conversation.
And it's gone so specialized that now you need an architect and an engineer, and then it has to be done by a carpenter, and often by a man, right? Or crew that is a totally different energy that goes into that whole entire process, where before it was no different than we need a pot to cook our beans on. Let's go make a pot. Let's go make a blanket. Let's go make a room, a house, and much more. Nobody was specialized so much at certain things. Yes, certain people had specific skills, but it was the kids, whoever could do it, whoever could help, right, was all part of it. And natural building materials, after teaching for over 35 years, one of the things I get great joy from is, since day one to this day, we do a straw bale workshop, and it's 50-50 men and women that sign up for the course. So suddenly, and with the clay plaster workshops, it's even higher percentage women that come. So you see that as long as, the natural building, where it's not heavy, specialized, toxic tools or materials, that the mothers, the children, the babies can come along, right? And then they learn, so then they know what's possible, right? And And that's how I sort of grew up, right? It's like you didn't even think about building. And I don't ever think of myself as a builder ever. It's more that, of course, you build if you need something, right? And you'll figure it out and you'll do it as you need. So that's how when I discovered or invented straw bale in my head was poor college student, married, needing a place to stay, and renting was just, I could not understand that principle at all. Money going out every month, and then you can't even fix it up or make it feel like you and make it more comfortable, right? It just, I did that for about 6 months. That I can't do this. So whatever, we had a piece of land and remote, and it was like, okay. And if it hadn't been winter time, no, middle of November, so there was snow and it was no running water, no electricity. We're out there and you're full-time college students trying to, do that in the background. But I'd rather live in a tent somewhere, than to do this rent thing. So, and I would have done Adobe, because that's what we grew up doing, was Adobe and mud stuff. But it was with no winter time, is no running water. It's hard to do Adobe. So my father suggested, why not straw bales? And I was like, great, let's go to the feed store, let's buy some bales and let's stack them up and then put a roof on it and figure it out. And we did it small, 200 square feet, but we ended up living in it for 5 years with
Wow.
2 babies even, but in the end. And
Did you say 200 square feet?
200 square feet.
Wow.
Place, but it had a little kitchen, a loft bed, and the baby would sleep under the bed, right? That was tall enough, with the closet.
Wow.
We couldn't afford windows at the time, so we did double pane plastic windows and a wood stove. And whenever we'd get some extra cash, we'd buy a glass, a window.
Wow.
And a couple of years buy a light or something, battery, solar panel with a battery. But so that's, and we lived in that house for about 8 years. And then I couldn't, that's how I met my present day husband, Bill, who the two of us started Canelo project. And he was looking for a house to photograph that was straw bale, because he was trying to write up a booklet on straw bale building. So he heard about me through family line and permaculture grapevine, and heard about my little straw bale house. And so I took him out. It had been sold by then, but I took him out to go see it. And that's how we joined forces, right? So.
Wow. Well, first of all, I have so many questions, and I'm very excited because immediately this interview took a very unexpected and delicious turn, as far as I'm concerned, where you're talking about the engagement of women and contrasting the sensibility.
Yes.
The difference in sensibility between what has become the building industry.
Yes, and it's an industry now.
Right? versus homemaking.
Yes, exactly. And by bringing women back into, and children back into that whole process, you're transforming how it feels, that it's just the same as making a meal for a person, the same as taking bread. It's a life-giving force, right?
Yes.
Women know how to do, and then you get to be, it's the women that want to paint and decorate. And in those traditional cultures, especially Pueblo and Spanish cultures, it was the women's job to do all the mud plastering.
Really?
And often a lot of the building and the construction, and the men's job to bring the supplies and the materials, right? Go cut the trees down, bring them. And the women and were very much part of it, right? which you went, it's only recently that it's gotten so, women are totally thrown out of it. And a lot of that is the choice of material. And then great image for me is when we were working doing low cost housing down in Mexico, and we're trying to and the root, interesting that the root for natural building is more often than not coming through a woman. Somewhere along that starts that whole process, that's drawn to it. And the men are usually more hesitant, like, I don't know about this. Is it as strong as cement? Is it, bullet? Is it respectable? Is it right? Well, women seem to be way more concerned about just comfort. They just want it to be warmer,
beauty,
cooler, and beauty as well.
Yes.
And they
instead of over utility, although the utility is there,
it's like form, the form with the function combined, right? And it isn't just
efficient and utilitarian.
Utilitarian. And as long as we're in the world of the fibers and the straw and the bamboo and the clay, huge with the clay, they're like, it's like a magnet for the women and the little kids, and they're working, like you can, like little ant trains with the kids carrying and hauling stuff, right? And everyone is a part of a process. And as soon as the cement came out and it was time for that, it was amazing to watch the women just suddenly disappear. Wow. They go, well, it seems time to go make the tortillas or time to go wash the clothes, right? Wow. And they would just leave and the men would take over, right?
And that's like for the foundation you're talking about.
It was for foundation or the roof, or plus, a lot of the world down in Mexico is cement based. Okay. So, and I would watch them, and it was a group of women that we had done a large office building, about 5,000 square feet, all with straw and mud and playing with different ceilings and trying to, and it was women were as much a part of the process. And I got to design it, which was very much fun, on pieces of paper and no architect, so you could change your mind or feel it with your body as you walked into a space and go, no, something's wrong. The window needs to be there, and then cut, and change. The process these days so you got to build from your head, conceive an idea, come up with blueprints, submit them in, give them to a separate person builder who sees it somewhere else, and then try making changes and not feel like you're being labeled as a wishy-washy woman, right? If you go, that's not right, I can feel it, right? But
I want to just take a moment to put a big pin in this. We're talking about such a very different paradigm. First of all, you're talking about masculine, feminine, you're talking about cement versus earth. And organic materials, and
that you can touch with your hands. The babies can eat it and not die, right?
And the thing about this that I'm hearing from you is not only are the materials organic, but the process is organic. Yes. The feeling of it is organic, that it's creating a unity and community just in
itself.
In itself.
In the process.
Yes.
Automatically creating community. You don't even have to try. It just happens, right?
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yes. And there's a natural, organic, beautiful flow to everything, right? And the processing. And it gets so contained and boxed in and trapped in our process, the way we deal with shelter.
Well, when I'm one of those people that has been renting forever. So when you're talking about it doesn't make any sense. I can so connect with that. But beyond that, when I would move to a place, what I would do is I would paint all the walls.
Yes.
And what that gave me was a sense of place. I felt all the corners, I felt all the space. And what
Mhm.
you're talking about is a process of that. First of all, the concept of, oh, we need a room, let's build an extra room, or we need a place to, I mean, out of the earth, let's source the materials from the earth and let's just make it like we would make a pot or like we would make a meal. It's woken something up in me just to have this conversation
Yeah.
about what it has to be, that kind of place, 200 square feet or 2000 square feet,
Yes.
has to be a very different place of nurturance and of home.
And all of that energy of understanding the material, picking out the tree, collecting, seeing the color of the clay, going and digging it, processing it, touching it over and over and over again. Your energy is embedded, and now you have a automatic relationship with
Yes.
every single of those things coming together, and with your, and I love it at the spot. Like at first you sort of have to play the, okay, see a vision and start and just get it moving, just get the
Yeah.
ball moving, and then the building starts to take over. And that's the
Yes.
process of when you're already pre-designed, you shut the door, slam the door shut on all of that, all
Yeah.
of the relationship, on all of like saying, oh, now the house, a room has a voice. Those walls sculpt themselves and they start using you. You just become its motor function, right? And it starts
It's like
shaping. And
poetry
it's
or
poetry
music.
between you and that space and
Yeah.
you and your thing. And it starts shaping itself, right? And there's nothing more fun for me when it's like, this isn't me anymore. This is what that wall wants. Whatever I thought it wanted, that is not it, right? Because
So
it'll,
it becomes like a living
yeah,
sculptural
yes,
environment, like building a nest.
yes, exactly. Like all other creatures do, right?
Yeah.
Forming that space. And then over the lifetime, imagine all that energy that comes back out from it to the inhabitants within it, right? To you. And the creativity, and now you also, if something goes wrong and needs taken care of, it's not about suing whoever did it or blame this person or that person. It's about now, well, I understand it, I will integrally part of it, I know how to also fix it or
Yeah.
change it when the time comes, take out a wall and redo it because it's time, the family's gotten bigger, the kids need a room though, whatever, right?
Oh, it's beautiful. What a wonderful, wonderful context to introduce this conversation. You just opened up whole new worlds to me.
Yeah. And
We
I think so many, how many people these days are wandering around feeling lost, feeling not community, craving it and needing to kind of again mentally create community things, right? Because we at every step we've taken it out of our everyday life,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it was always there, and we keep shutting it out,
Yeah.
and
You
yeah,
brought up creativity. Like
yeah,
well, really what this is about is it is creative, it
mm-hmm,
is expressive, it is emergent because it starts showing itself in the process.
yes,
So
and
it's engaged.
and it's incredibly empowering.
Of course it is.
Right?
Of
Like
course it.
like, oh, if there's a fire, I don't have to be scared and buy the insurance going to save me, some person out, abstract being out there is going to save me, right? It's like, no, okay, if something happens and it doesn't, we know how to do it again, we'll just do it again, right? And we'll pull ourselves together, talk about community, right?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to speak the same language, you don't have to believe in the same god, you don't have to believe in the same politics, when people are mixing a thing of mud side by side, they're automatically connected.
Yeah.
Without even a word spoken, right?
I think what you're talking about is reconnecting to our foundational nature.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're of the earth.
We're of the earth. We're born from the earth. Yes.
Right.
And in native culture, literally all their creation stories are that people came up out of the earth, and that's home, right?
Wow.
That's our home. And you watch it. I'm amazed when people who enter our straw clay covered buildings, right? And they'll go with their hands automatically reaching out to touch those walls unconsciously, not even knowing what they're doing, because our bodies automatically respond to those materials in a completely different way than cement, sheetrock,
Well, one of the things that I'm aware of is a technique called grounding, where you're walking foot on the earth because it has a certain frequency that helps to balance us and our metabolism, and it makes sense. Living in an earthen home would have that same kind of resonance.
And that's one of the where I feel sometimes lucky. I forget that, see, people have not grown up in it, have never touched it, so they have no idea what they're missing.
Yeah.
They don't till you. I notice it immediately when I go out and have to stay somewhere else. And you're like, oh, okay. But I am so lucky that I have the opportunity to have grown up with it, and my children as well, and my children growing up building, and now they're doing the same thing. But that we can at least recognize, oh, there it is, and it's so incredibly simple.
Yes.
Like so simply basic, right? That it doesn't require gobs of money or expertise beyond, or schooling, or the simplicity is beautiful, right?
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to give people an idea of what this actually is. I mean, we've talked about the sensibility of it. We've talked about the essence of it. But you're a technical wizard on this, having done this for 35 years, developed all kinds of techniques. You're kind of the OG in this arena. And I'd love it if you could help people understand what this is, because I don't know about most other people, but when I first heard about straw bale, what came to mind was the Three Little Pigs. And a house of straw wasn't such a great idea. So, because it could mold, it could burn, it could get waterlogged, but this is not that. This is something that offers incredible resilience in so many ways. Maybe you can give us an idea of what straw bale building is, and then we'll get into some of the actual technical details, okay?
Sounds great. So straw bale is usually the leftover grain from growing wheat, or bale. There's bales of bean bales, and of course all the different grains, rye, barley, or whatnot. So just something that's and using twine, but it's all in this giant block of insulation, right? Which is great. It's perfect for exterior walls, and they happen to be a nice big block, so you get these nice, thick, comforting, massive walls easily without a lot of work, right? So it's this stacking block, these bales up for supporting system. I prefer the load bearing system where the bales are taking the weight of the roof. But these simple bales are stacked up like giant blocks, and then we mix up a clay mixture with a lot of chopped straw in the mix, and that goes on to coat those walls, and that's it. Pretty much. That's it. And there's a lot of different ways to stack a bale. And there's a lot of different ways to.
Do you put any kind of mortar or anything between the bales?
No, no mortar. So just stack them up. The most important things in our system that I really am impressed with is the corners. As long as you have strong corners, then the building can't separate apart, right? So let's contain those corners. So we literally sew the bales together. And we sew.
What do you mean by that? Can you be
more? A giant bale needle.
Yeah.
And the baling twine, the same twine the bales are wrapped with. And we sew through one bale to the other, and with string, and ties a few couple knots, and that ties them together so they can't separate apart. And that all of a sudden, when your corners are locked together, and we also have some pinning in there where necessary, as necessary. But the whole thing feels to me like when you're building like a basket. You're dealing, instead of like wood and you're nailing or cinder block where you're mortar, it feels like you're dealing with fiber, just like a basket. And so the more that you're using sewing, the more the bales, it feels appropriate. It feels like it matches, right?
Let me ask you a question. It just came in my mind. You know how with bricks, they interleave the bricks?
Yes.
Do you interleave the bales?
Well, because that'll help for plastering. You're breaking up those joints. The more they're broken up, the less plastering issues you have, right? And the stronger building whenever you have bricks, because then you get a more overall even effect by separating those joints rather than concentrating it, right? So it's just, you stack it like Lego blocks, and span the joints as much as possible.
So with it, when you're doing these circuits, is that what it's called?
Yeah, rows.
Okay, when you're stacking these row by row, are you doing what you would do with bricks, where you stack two on the first layer, there are two side by side, the next layer is over that seam?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, exactly. So it's staggered.
It's staggered, exactly.
Okay.
And yeah, and those bales are hefty. You've got a good insulation. You're definitely up in the 30 R30 insulation, right?
Explain what that means.
So it's a heat trap. How fast the heat from outside or the cold from outside will transfer through, and just the raw thickness of it is slowing it down. So it's way more insulative than, say, an adobe block, which is also a great building material, but it's great for thermal mass because it's got a heaviness. So it's better for like getting heated up by the sun during the day. And adobe isn't holding on to it, but slowly releasing it both sides. But stuff like cinder block water is very good at thermal mass. So is stone, so is adobe, so is stuff. Anything usually what's heavy is usually good for thermal mass. So
this was something that always confused me, and you've just explained it, but I want to really clarify the distinction between thermal mass and insulation.
Right.
And it sounds to me because the straw bale has clay on the surface, that it's both.
It is, and it can be both. Absolutely.
Okay, so thermal mass is retaining temperature and releasing it gradually.
Yes.
Insulation is
think sleeping bag. Think down feathers.
So it's sort of stopping the movement of the temperature, yeah?
You want it to just stop it, say don't come in. And it's not necessarily storing it and releasing it later. It's just stay on that side, right?
But I would imagine, and please tell me if I'm off base, but I would imagine with the straw bale, since it has the heavy clay on the outside, it's absorbing the heat, the thermal mass, it's absorbing the heat, and then that can transfer gradually through the through the straw? No.
There's hopefully You don't want a lot of transfer. So the exterior plaster is not counted as thermal mass for the efficiency of the building. It's doing a different job. It's doing it's a protective layer. So that's what it's doing on that side. On the interior, however, it is acting as a thermal mass bank, especially the thicker it is, that it is acting that way somewhat. So it is collecting it somewhat more. I really think that a great combination is like exterior straw bale walls and then do an interior wall of cob, adobe, stone, a thermal mass wall that is near a southern window, right? Or south facing window, that so it gets heated by the sun all day long, and it's contained within that insulated. It's insulated by those walls, but it's interior. So now it can drink up the heat, release it at night. Drink up the cold during the summer, release it at, it can go both ways, winter and summer. And whenever we're building like that, it's a great combination. Temperatures get very stable. When you have just a high insulation house, it's great. It keeps the hot out, but it changes rapidly. The temperature will go up, down much more dramatically. And by introducing thermal mass into it, it evens out those natural waves that you get from hot to cold. I know if purely high, like I have to live in a wonderful house, but it's all adobe, built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, right? Wow. And no insulation, very little. Wow. So it has huge amounts, or the stone houses in Europe and stuff. Think of that, a lot of mass. So it's nice because it'll slow down. Like all of a sudden the cold won't be there right away, but somewhere in the middle of the night, it'll get suddenly cold. Or if you're not constantly heating that house, you go on vacation for a week, you come back and you're not constantly pumping heat into it, that mass will cool down, and it will take a long time and a lot of energy to bring it back up to comfortable temperature. So that's the problem with the thermal mass, is if you can keep it constantly stable temperature, the better, because then once it drops, right? It's hard to bring it back up. But so the combination is ideal, right? Is ideal. And those so it's great, like between your living room and your bedroom, it's a great wall to now introduce an adobe or a cob or something like that. And not only wonderful, because now that's also a great place to play with sculptability. Like you could play with a circular interior wall where it's not increasing the cost anything, because it's not having to bear the roof, or you're not having to stick a window into it.
So how do you stabilize that? Because when you're building the straw bale,
yes,
the bales are creating the structure. But
they're creating the structure, yes, and they're creating the insulation. They're two things at once. Yeah.
Right. So and we'll get back to more of the rudiments of how to do that. But if you're doing an interior adobe wall, what are the supports? What are you building in?
Oh, they're supportive in themselves. Especially, an adobe is usually about 10 inches thick, and often cob walls are similar. So
can you make the distinction between adobe and cob for us?
So adobe, yes, thank you, is a traditional, coming out of Spain, typically it was a sun-dried mud brick.
Okay.
So it's made with formwork, a mix of mud and sand and straw, and put in a formwork. Immediately the formwork is moved into make block, and they're dried in the sun. And after about a day or two, you flip them to get all sides dry. And then they're dried, you could store them, and they'll last forever. Well, not, they need to be covered. The rain will do them in. But then you can take them, and now you can mortar them with more mud sand mix. Use that as the mortar to stick them together, and again lay them like blocks, so they're all their joints are thing, and they're So that's a mud brick wall. And the
Okay.
cob is more monolithic. So
Right.
it's similar mix, and you're using now not shorter straw, you're using longer lengths of straw, so that those lengths of straw could be kind of knitted together as you're pressing the lumps of cob together, hand pressing them, and to make a solid wall up. The disadvantage of cob is that you can usually could only go so high in a day. So that then because it's wet material.
So it can only bear so much weight.
Yeah, of its own self. So next day, one day you could do maybe a foot and a half, couple of feet at the max, and then go on top the next day and keep going up that way. Adobe block, you can go much higher in a day because you're dealing with a dry block material. So you can do 4 feet high, say 3 or 4 feet high. So you can just go up higher. But they're the same, they're clay and straw, sand, right? So they're the same materials, just depending how the lengths of straw and how they're done and how they're dealt with.
So you just
and when they're plastered, you can't tell whether it's cob or adobe or what, because it all looks the same, right?
Got it. Which one lasts longer?
Oh, they blast up. So in where adobe, all building materials have pros and cons, right? So it's kind of, they're all do an amazing thing. The adobe, the cob, like in an earthquake, it's going to be way stronger because it's monolithic and all knitted together. There's less thing for it to break, and you can do easier to do very much more organic-y shape and more hobbit housey like shapes than it is with a more squarish block that you're working with. Although you can force all the materials to do, each of the other. The brick, like if you're doing a dome, for example, then an earthquake shakes, you've got breakage. It's gonna, the adobe blocks are more susceptible to like earthquake damage because it's monolithic. Yeah. But in terms of thermal mass, they're the same.
Okay.
And in terms of building, adobe is faster because you sun dry them. But if you're not living in the Southwest with a lot of sun, you now have to have space to lay those blocks out and get them sun dried. In England, you may not have that. You're like better off to just do cob. So you'll find, in Spain, the adobe works well, a lot of sun. Mexico, adobes are very common. Southwest adobe is the tradition, right?
You made a comment about you can't leave those adobe bricks out because
no,
the
one rain
destroy them.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a straw bale house, the outside is mud and straw or clay and straw. How does that not melt away?
Good question. It would. If you took that adobe mix and put it on the outside of that straw bale, yes, couple of rains, it is gone. And that is what I grew up with thinking was there when I started 30 years ago, we couldn't get anybody to do mud plaster on the exterior. And it was by pure accident, almost. Not even us. We were trying to do some low-income housing down in Mexico. We could, you had to test the mix. Try to get certain people to test is not easy, right? And takes a certain kind of brain pattern. But we actually were looking at a German style technique being done called light straw clay, where they have a wooden framework, and I call it kind of ram straw, where you put you coat the long straw, with clay slip. Now you're going to ram that straw together, pack it together so it sticks to each thing. And it's more on the insulative side of building, and it's you use plywood between your frame structure to pack it in there like ram straw, and you can do a wall pretty quickly on up. And there, the thicker it is, the more insulated. But you have to watch out because you'll get mold issues because now you have some moisture in there. And if it's not done during the right time of year, you'll get molding happening, right? Which is nice about the straw bale. It's dry material you're dealing with.
So that's another concern about straw bale is if it gets wet.
If it gets wet from the top into the center of the bale,
you're done.
Done for. And it will, you most likely will have molding issues. And I've walked into certain houses that you can smell it instantly, right? And when they're done well, you don't have that decomposing smell. Yeah.
But when it's done well, it's a dry bale. What are the dimensions of these bales?
The bales, well, there's two dimensions. There's 2 string, which is running about 2 feet by 3 feet long and a foot and a half more or less tall. The 3 string is much bigger. They're like 4 feet long and they're 2 feet wide, and they're about a foot and a half deep. And because they're so big, that's what we have available in Arizona. New Mexico, other states have more 2 string bales. Colorado.
So you said 4 courses, 4 rows will make
4 rows,
an 8-foot ceiling.
Yes, because we take the 2-foot width and we turn it on edge, so we're getting 2 feet, 2 feet. 4 courses gets us to 8 feet, right? So it's really nice, only 4 courses. Otherwise, other building like the 2 string, you're probably in the range of, I don't know, I haven't built with them so long, about 7 courses, right?
Wow.
Or 7, 8.
And we'll get back to the exterior in a minute, but what you had said to me is that it's really important as you're stacking these things that they be protected on the top from the elements, because when it could get moldy, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So as you're building, you're
building, but the advantage of straw bale is they're fast. 4 bales doesn't take that long to stack, even a pretty large structure. And if you want to have your trusses or your roof assembly on hand, ready to go, with the carpenters ready to go and put it on up, or you're building a structure and using the bales as only insulation and not structurally, which is called they're only infill. Then
so you'd have like a wood
wood structure. You have a post and beam structure or a timber frame structure, and now you have your roof, and now you're only going to form some walls with the bales, and that's what is more common out there in the world, right? Because the code people like that,
right?
They understand wood. They do not understand bales, so they love it when you go down their language. Right.
So let's while we're talking about the bales and stacking the bales, we'll get back to the outside shirts. What you do that's rather unusual, as I understand it, is you take some kind of pole or a spike or something that is you said bamboo is what you generally use?
We use bamboo, yeah.
And you have it go through all
No, we don't. We used to go through the center of the bales, and now we do 2 exterior pins on the face of the bale wall, interior and exterior, and we tie through the bale with string to sandwich those up against. So, and we call them to make a difference from the interior pinning to exterior pins.
I see.
And the advantage of that is you don't have they're way stronger. We were building, again, interesting, down in Mexico, and those bales were marshmallowy. And we're going, none of us trusted putting a roof on this marshmallowy bale house. And we were at that point using interior pins.
I see.
And it was like, no, not even with that, it's not going to work. And suddenly somebody leaned against the wall with a bamboo pin, and it was like exterior pin, 2 of them. And that way we didn't have to stand on these unstable bale walls, hammering down pins through the middle of them. But we could stack those walls and pin them with no people standing on bale walls, 0, right? They're only, and sewing them on. It's a great system. Makes it so, give me any bale, I don't care how well, those give it the rigidity it needs.
So
And
it's kind of like the idea of the wood trusses, but it's
yeah,
afterwards to support it, right?
yes. And you can take something relatively small, like bamboo, 3/4 inch. That's what we use. Or sometimes if we run in and can't find bamboo, saplings, or my son has been cutting like 1x2 strips, right, of wood. Sometimes we can't find them. And by using the bales as bracing, they become incredibly strong, like mini posts.
Wow. So now you're sewing through the bale from one post to another,
Yes.
wrapping around each post through the bales.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're compressing those bales again.
Well, we're not compressing them this direction. So we'll first, because there's those pins are now not only giving us, they're also bearing the roof weight.
Okay.
Not only the bales, because we'll stack the bales up and they will get compressed from the top down by something. But these pins, we started changing the foundation, widening the foundation so that those pins sit on the foundation.
Okay.
And we widened the roofing assembly on top, the top plate, so that it became bearing, so that suddenly by
also
those pins become mini posts and actually are taking the weight of the roof.
Okay.
As well as the bales, as well as all the window and door frames, which are typically 2x4s. And so the pins and the windows and the door bucks are all sitting on the foundation and sitting beneath the top plate. And they're predetermined height and cut at that height before they're put on. And the bales are all,
the pins are.
The pins and the window and door butts.
Okay.
Well. So
they're put in before the bales.
They're put in before the bales, the window and door bucks are.
Okay.
They're put in and they're braced. The bales are stacked. Then the pins are tied on, exterior pins all around. And then there's all threaded rod connection or strapping or whatever way you can figure out how to pull. Then the top assembly gets placed on top and connected, and it's cranked down. We use
I can't visualize that. How does that work?
So you have your bales all wonky. Now we have a wood assembly, kind of like a ladder truss with 2x6 that fits on top of the bales, and the 2x4 that catches the bamboo pins. And that's set on top of the walls, connected at the corners. And then we drill through it on the face of the thing. There's a connector at the foundation, because we also have to connect. So you have to figure out a way to connect that roof assembly down to the foundation.
Oh.
So the window and door box are convenient because they're giving you a connection. The bamboo pins could, but it's not easy. But these all thread, we also need to pull it down. So these all threaded rods, every 6 feet, inside and out, they're matching. Outside and inside. Again, they're not going through the bale, they're on the face, just like the pins are.
Okay.
And they're J-bolts in the foundation. So you can connect to them, drill through the top plate. There's a nut and washer on top of the top plate, and all you have to do is start cranking it down with a washer, Not, and with a
So
drill.
these are also like 2x4s,
They're
essentially,
not two by
just a
four.
smaller.
Small rods. They're like rebar thick,
Oh,
and
okay.
they have screwed in threaded ends,
What are they made of? They're metal?
metal, and then you attach them to the. Or people, we have also done where you can take strapping up and over and crank it down, right?
Oh, I see. So
But
you would root the strapping on one side, throw it over the top, pull,
crank,
crank
yeah,
it up and root it on the other.
uh-huh. But these threaded rods, and they give us a lot of muscle, right? They give two of them on either side and 6 feet apart. It gives us a lot of muscle, and we can crank that whole thing down till it touches all the top of the bamboo pins and the door and window butts. And then you screw it down and it's all locked in place. So now it doesn't keep coming down. That was the problem with traditional load bearing straw bale, was over time it just keeps sinking. Big snow, it'd come down some more, you get cracking at the windows and doors, and it was very hard to mount large windows in that opening. This system now gives me 100% design flexibility. Put in what do you want? You put it in. It doesn't matter, because you're evening out all the weight distribution and everything. I love it. Just like permaculture techniques, when something is doing two jobs,
Yes.
rather than one,
Yes.
as a great advantage. So those pins are doing two jobs. The window and door butts are doing two jobs. The straw bales are doing two jobs. Everything is doing, share part. And the plastering. Once we
Let
oversized
me
our
just ask you,
foundation.
let me just ask you, when you're plastering, the plaster obviously then needs to be thick and so
Yes.
that you have a smooth surface that covers all these pins and poles, yeah?
Yes. And the thicker the better. So if you don't have 1/2 inch thickness over the surface of those bamboo pins, I'll guarantee it'll crack.
Ah, okay.
But if you've got it 1/2 inch or more, I don't care how thick, right? Go more. More is better than not enough. But 1/2 inch or more, then you've got this nice smooth finish over the whole thing. And also, and what else stops it from cracking is loading that plaster up, that clay mix up with as much straw as you possibly can, dropping the sand out of the plaster mix and upping the straw gives you not only a very lightweight plaster, which is nice, easy to work, an extremely flexible plaster that's matching the characteristic of the bale wall. So think of a basket, give it an earthquake, there's nothing really to crack. There's nothing to break, and it's just going to take the motion and settle it back into a place again with no cracking happening, right? Wow. Same with the plaster. It can take an immense amount of movement before it cracks. Never seen a plaster quite like it with that, as our base coat plaster that we go over the bales. And the other advantage is its window of like no testing. I can show up on site with a clay I've never worked with before and make a mix that I can 100% guarantee it won't crack by the feel of it, and train people to do, the window of error is huge for some reason. Other mixes, it gets more and more narrow. You have to do more and more testing, right? But that one is so forgiving and easy to apply. It's just put it on thick, and it's also your sculpting mix. So now you can start shaping those walls. You want a curved, rounded edge? What do you want? A sharp edge? You want it right? You want an edge? Fine. Shape it. Just keep putting more and more plaster mix on, and you can have whatever you want, right? Without the fear of it cracking, right? And it's lightweight, so you're not fighting gravity as much. As soon as those heavy sand mixes, it's going to start falling off the wall once you start building it up, So it's and the other advantage of that mix is it's somehow amazingly weatherproof.
That was my next question is how do you stop it from getting dissolved?
Because somehow by sandy mixes, put it on the wall, give me one rain, off the wall instantly. Give me that strawy mix, somehow the rain hits it and it creates sort of a mini thatch effect that just brushes it off. And it's also monolithic because you can put it on that thick. You've now got which can take kids coming and hitting it with a rock or pickaxe or something banging into it, or a hailstorm. Every other mix, you have to be very careful about its thicknesses, and you have to build up them in like layer after layer after layer. Talking about all those layers, you're having to make sure they connect, and that water, they don't get broken through. Water doesn't come through a small crack in it and then delaminates one layer from the next. You get the risk of delamination. Each layer is so much more fragile. Weather resistant. This is a monolithic, flexible, insulative, movable, weatherproofable, weather resistant, amazing mix, sculptable mix, right? That's easy to teach and beginners to learn on. I can't.
So let's picture it. We have the bales that are reinforced. We have the thick clay plaster, straw heavy clay plaster, and that's going to have a rough kind of very organic surface, I imagine.
It can, if you're going to go over it with something else, like say on the interior, you're going to do a pretty color finish or something on the interior. But on the exterior, the next morning, it's also nice and thick that you have a lot of drying time and a lot of workability time. You come with a metal trowel when you're shaped. You've come to your finished shape. Hit it with a little water and metal trowel it, hard trowel it. The surface seals up.
Wow.
And it gets this beautifully, highly textured, but smooth finished looking plaster.
Wow.
And I don't know why anyone would ever want to do anything else on this. Then so you do that and you watch it, because not all sides of your building are getting hit with the same storms. Usually you have all the southwest east corners getting more worn. So you can now, you have years. Your building is protected. Your bales can breathe. You have a wonderful time. Sit back, relax. And now you can watch it weathering. You can see where it gets a little hairier. It's not going to come off the wall right away. You have a lot of years, right? And watch it. And, oh, maybe that corner needs a little extra protection. I'll do a lime clay or a lime plaster or linseed or something, or wooden wainscoting, or plant a bush on that side, something, right, to help it out. You have time to watch and then, go from there. And 3/4 of the building is doing fabulous, right?
So I have another question. As you're in the first round where you have the bales, you have the roof, it's protected, and we're starting to put the clay on the walls or the plaster on the walls, external walls. What happens if it dries before we get to add more?
No problem. Just wet the wall surface down and go and start again. So you can stop and take a break whenever you want. In fact, a lot of times people say if you're building in the fall and the bales go up, get the roof on. Most important, protect your windowsills. And then say now it's October, November. You can now leave. Don't worry about the outside. With
really,
bales are fine as long as you've got them covered. As long as the water's not going, the rain can come, can sit them. It's going to go in only a couple of inches or so, and then it's going to be able to dry out. It's not a problem. I would focus then on the interior work, right, for that whole winter, and then come plaster it in the spring. So as soon as you get the roof up, you can take, you can pause and take a break, right?
Wonderful.
And if you stop halfway, you're only doing it by yourself, do a quarter of a wall section at a time, and just keep working the way around. Yeah, no problem.
Wow.
Clay is so wonderful because the stress of how fast it has to go on, it's workability time. You don't have to worry that it dries out too fast like you do with lime or cement or anything else, right? It is so user friendly, right?
So this is maybe a bizarro question, but I'm looking at your hands. Your hands look great. How doesn't the clay dry out your hands? What do you do to keep your hands from getting dried and cracked and
Oh,
funky?
they do get dried. When people haven't never worked with clay, at first they always go, oh, the clay feels so good and nice, and then all of us with your clay like, oh gosh. It actually helps a lot to just coat them with something like salve or anything, put a gob of something. It's like, I hate working with gloves, so I never work with gloves, but coat them first, work all day, and then you're slopping everything you can at the end of the day, onto them, and they does. But
Awesome.
yeah.
So what if anything should I have asked you that I didn't ask?
Oh gosh, you have a good understanding of building, so it's you get the concept, but yeah, and I'm not like, these materials are just amazing, beautiful materials that you can work with, and there's so much room for creativity to, if you don't have bales, you look at look at the tree, go back whenever I go to a new place and you're trying to say, what should we use, go back to the traditional building, because they're the teachers. Those people for hundreds of years, thousands of years, have been using the plants and the resources from that place, that take that knowledge, use it, be creative, take all these things, twist it a bit, change it, or use what they've done. Sometimes you don't even have to do any of that adjustment, and play with it, and start small, because it's hard work, and,
Yeah.
and it's all hard work, but there is no more satisfying feeling when I think we keep looking for satisfaction and soul fulfillment from
Stuff.
stuff, or from hiring somebody to do it for you.
Mm.
And it's such a different, yes, you're appreciative, and sometimes you have to, that's part of the process, but whenever it's possible, that, oh, even for a little bit, even in whatever way that you can, be a part of it and you do it, the feeling at the end of that day is magical. And you can't buy that feeling, and you can't purchase it, and you can't, because it's back to that world of relationship and connection, right? And I think we get confused that we think we can buy it, right? And you can't. But it's the same thing of raising kids, no different. Like, yes, you can have a very different relationship than if you paid for someone to do it for you, right? And
Right.
it's not easy, and it is all consuming, and it is hard work. Some days you want to cry, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, right?
Wow. So,
Yeah.
Athena, you've written a bunch of books. Do you want to, let's give you a shameless plug opportunity
Oh,
here.
well, yeah, we've done a lot of collaborative books throughout the years. I think the Strawberry House book was the first Strawberry House book out there, and it's still on the shelves, although we don't do much of what is written in it at all. So it's really, and we need a new book written. We don't have one yet on our system that we were talking about
So
today.
are we making a call for collaborators to come and help the book?
I'd really like to do a little how-to booklet on it. That would be, yeah, just really simple and basic. And since I'm full-time grandma at the moment, I have to put it off a couple of years because can't, with a 1-year-old and a 3-month-old, it's hard to get anything written.
Gotcha. How about your website?
Our website has some very pretty pictures on it, and a lot of them. My husband is a photographer, so that helps a whole lot to have these wonderful photographs to work with.
So give us your URL.
Yes, caneloproject.com.
And it's CANELO.
ELO, correct. Project. Yeah.
All one word.
All one word.
Wonderful. And are you on social media? Can people?
Yes, there's a Canelo project, and follow if you want even a more in-depth look into our everyday lives. Follow Bill Steen on Facebook, and he'll let you know what we ate for breakfast, right?
Okay, great. Great. Well, I so appreciate you. And I want to say that the reason that I was introduced to you was due to the Crestone Energy Fair. And the Crestone Energy Fair is an amazing annual event that features all kinds of artisans and traditional techniques, and it's a beautiful thing. And they have now an extended education program, and you are actually giving a course. This is going to date this this broadcast, but the course that you're giving in Crestone, which is ridiculously reasonably priced, is what date and how much?
Oh, boy, I hope you remember the day. I know it's the end of May.
Okay, it's the end of May.
And it's a 3-day course. Ooh.
Okay.
And it's yes, I'll be teaching it along with my dear's younger sister, is my assistant. Yes.
Wonderful.
A first time ever. So so we'll be doing on one, I think it's Lisa's house.
Lisa Bodie. Yes.
Lisa Bodie doing who does so much work for the Crestone Energy Fair, doing a lot of sheetrock walls. So it's a very interesting, great opportunity to see how to bring all this wonderful clay plasters and paints and finishes onto a sheetrock wall.
So again, just to be really clear so that nobody's confused, this is not a straw bale building.
No, it's not a straw bale building
but
class.
You do give them, and they are advertised on your website.
Our website, yes.
But it is a natural finishes workshop for 3 days. So you will learn natural paints, natural plasters, and techniques for finishing and creating these things.
Absolutely. And it's good for whether you've ever done ever done it before or because there's tricks to doing and we'll run through a coarser, beautifully finished coarser mix, a finer mix, all the way to clay paints. So there'll be a spectrum in there.
Beautiful. And specifically, you said this is going to be on sheetrock.
Yes.
So important to know is that this finishing work and these materials are not limited to straw.
Absolutely.
Great. So how can people find out about that? Do you know? Probably at the Crestone Energy site. Well, I'll tell you what. I
would go there. It's actually advertised as well on our website and on their website as well.
Okay, so you could either go look up the Crestone Energy Fair. I'm embarrassed to say I don't have the site right now.
Or the caneloproject.com and look in their workshops, and we have off-site workshops listed there as well, and it'll link you to their website from our website. Yeah.
Perfect. So just in case you're time lapsing. This is currently April of 2025. We're airing this the beginning of May 2025, and the workshop is at the end of May 2025.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I think, is there anything else?
Just play. Yeah. Come play.
Love it.
And by the way, this whole beautiful wall behind me is all done with clay.
Wow. Now, how do you get yellow and green and black and white and red clay?
You can find them, and then with some pigment uses, you can adjust the colors a little bit, or you'd be amazed when you start looking at clay around there.
Wow.
On road cuts, how many different color clays you can find. Yeah.
Wow. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate you and what you're doing in the world and the legacy that you're leaving, you know, carrying on tradition and bringing it into contemporary life and building community in the process is a beautiful thing. So thank you. And thank you to our all of you, our listeners who are carrying the torch. Please share this. Please just share the vibrance and enthusiasm around the possibilities of really living so much more closely with the earth. And I also want to say thank you to my cohort here in Sustainability Now, Scott Billy, who's also our producer. And that's it for today. So live your best life, love the world around you, and together we can save the world.
Thank you for listening to Sustainability Now. Visit sustainabilitynow.global to find resources related to today's program. While you're there, pledge your support by making a contribution to help us shape a world that works. And remember to subscribe, share, and follow us on social media.